so the two of them sat in meditation in the thatched hut. The Venerable Monk sat there for 7 days and 7 nights, unmoving. But Master Jiechen sat for only half a day, before his legs ached terribly, and his mind became even more restless and agitated. Master Jiechen circled the Venerable Monk several times each day, and after waiting patiently until the 7th day, the Venerable Monk finally left his state of meditation. He asked the Venerable Monk, "When you are in the state of intense meditation, are you aware or not? If you have awareness, it is not called entering the state of meditation. If you have no awareness, then isn't it a dry meditation?" As the saying that stagnant water cannot hide a dragon, the Venerable Monk said, "You must understand that in the chant sector, meditation is not the ultimate goal, it is solely for the purpose of clarifying your mind and seeing your nature. When genuine doubt arises, the mind naturally becomes clear. Because doubtful sentience persists, it is not ignorance. Since there are no delusions, there is no awareness. Though there is no awareness out of delusion, even the faintest sound, like a needle dropping to the ground, can be heard clearly. I know how many times you circle around me every day, but I don't make any distinction because of the power of doubtful sentience, although there is no discrimination. Because there is doubtful sentience, the practice is continuous, so it is not a dry concentration. Although it is not a dry concentration, it is only a matter of practical process, and is not the ultimate goal. So these past 7 days, I just felt like they passed in the blink of an eye. If I had raised a mind of discrimination, I would have lost my concentration. Those who practice chant and cultivate the way must doubt this sentience to the utmost. Once the right time comes, they can break through the doubts, and rub their own nostrils. Only then can they truly achieve the way, and attain the state of non-birth. From then on, Master Jiechen always followed the Venerable Monk, and had great faith and respect for him. Once, the Venerable Monk entered a state of meditation for 18 days. When the other people on the mountain heard about it, they all came to pay their respects to him. He felt bored, so the two of them carried the backpack on their backs, and headed towards Mount Hermei. One night, the two of them spent the night in a small, deserted temple. In the middle of the night, Master Jiechen was bitten by a flea, so he flicked the flea on the ground. The flea fell to the ground and broke its leg. The Venerable Monk heard the flea screaming miserably, while in meditation. The next day, the Venerable Monk asked Master Jiechen about this matter. After hearing that, he was very surprised and thought, "He even knew when I flicked a flea on the ground, and could hear the flea's cry." His concentration skills are truly amazing. It can be seen that, the state of purity of body and mind, is truly inconceivable. Later, they went to Yunnan together to open a temple. In 1957, there were some masters in their 80s in Yunnan Mountain, who knew about these things. They said that the Venerable Monk Jiechen was also remarkable. He knew when his time was coming, so he bid farewell to everyone in advance, and was reborn while sitting. During his time in Yunnan, the Venerable Monk would often sit in meditation for 7 days. Occasionally, when someone wanted to discuss something important with him, they would wake him up with a bell, and he would leave the meditation. Therefore, when the Venerable Monk was at Yunnan Mountain, we asked him, "Did these things happen?" He said, "Yes." We asked again, "Why don't you enter into meditation now?" He said, "I am rebuilding the temple now, and government officials and contractors come to see me every day. I have to go out, so I can't enter into meditation." He also said with a smile, "If I sit here for 7 days without getting up, some people with evil intentions will take my body, and burn it as if I am dead. Then this temple cannot be built, so now I dare not enter into meditation." Although the Venerable Monk did not sit in meditation for 7 days, when he was in Yunnan Mountain, he often sat still for a whole day. Sometimes he started sitting at midnight, and didn't get up until the dusk of the next day. Therefore, the realm of him is not something that ordinary mortals can understand. We once asked the Venerable Monk, I heard that, people who have attained enlightenment are saints, is that right? He said, yes. I said, that means people who have attained the first fruit of Arahant, right? First fruit, yes. He added, actually, the first fruit is very difficult to attain. Those who have attained the first fruit of stream entry, not only have no delusion in meditation, but also in their daily life, such as walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, they have no delusion either. His 6 sense roots are not contaminated by the 6 dusts, that is, if the 6 dusts cannot disturb him, he has entered the holy stream. It is said that when a person who has attained the first fruit of Arahant walks, although you see his feet on the ground, they are actually 2 centimeters off the ground. Once, someone asked us, I've heard that, those who have transcended birth and death, never touch the ground, or get their feet dirty when they walk. This Venerable Monk is considered a great bodhisattva. You often walk with him, but does he actually touch the ground? Do his shoes get dirty? So we paid close attention to this matter and conducted many experiments. The ground in Yunju mountain is all dirt, and it rains frequently. When ordinary people come back from outside, their shoes will naturally be covered in mud, but the Venerable Monk's shoes never have any mud on them. Strangely enough, when we walked behind him, and paid close attention to his steps, his shoes obviously stepped on the mud. However, after return, we inspected his shoes again, and there was not a speck of dirt on them. We still don't understand the mystery behind this. In 1957, there was a fire on the mountain outside Shinru Temple. All the monks went to put out the fire, and the Venerable Monk also called us to follow him to put out the fire. At first, he was wearing a jacket and walking briskly in front of us. When we reached the fire zone and were about to go up the mountain, the Venerable Monk in front of us suddenly disappeared, and we saw him standing on a big rock about 12 meters away from us. We couldn't help but shout, Venerable Monk, you were just here, how come you ran so far away all of a sudden? He stood on a highland and said, hurry up to put out the fire. We really can't figure out how he got over there. At that time, the Venerable Monk gave lectures in the meditation hall every night, or sometimes every other day. When the time came and the incense board was struck, not only did we farming in the field and the masters working outside run back, but even the crows in the sky also flew back in groups to listen to the revelation. There were a lot of crows on Yunju mountain at that time. They were so densely packed on the roofs, nearby trees, and the road from the thatched hut to the meditation hall that we could hardly move. Sometimes we have to use a stick to move them, so that they jumped and we can move forward. Otherwise, we will step on them. After the lecture, the Venerable Monk returned to his hut, and the crows also returned to their nests. So, crows are also very spiritual. In early June of 1957, the weather was extremely hot. One day, the Venerable Monk suddenly wanted to go to the top of 5 Elder Peak to check the terrain. At that time, there were 6 of us. We tied a rattan chair with a backrest with 2 bamboo sticks to make a sedan chair for the Venerable Monk to sit in, and we divided into 3 shifts to take turns. It was almost 9 o'clock when we set off. The weather was very hot and the sunshine was very strong. We thought to ourselves, the Venerable Monk is weak and the weather is so hot, yet he chose today to climb the 5 Elder Peak. He must be suffering from the sun. Strangely enough, when we lifted the sedan chair, many crows flew in the sky and gathered above the sedan chair, circling and blocking the sun so tightly that we could not get any sunlight at all. They followed us, and wherever the sedan chair was carried, the crows circled like dark clouds, so that we didn't feel the heat at all. Till we reached the top of 5 Elder Peak. After the Venerable Monk got off the sedan chair, The crows flew down and surrounded the sedan chair, looking up at the old monk and calling non-stop. The Venerable Monk stayed at the top of Five Elder Peak for a while, looked around at the terrain, and then turned back. As we lifted the sedan chair, the crows swarmed into the sky again, and circled overhead as they had done when we came. They formed a big umbrella, blocking the strong sunlight, and only gradually dispersed, until we reached the door of the thatched hut. After entering the thatched hut, the Venerable Monk said, "You were all afraid that it would be extremely hot today, but is it really hot?" The six of us all smiled with our mouths held back. We said, "Today is all thanks to your blessings and virtues, which touch the crows, so that they come to protect the Dharma, and block out the sun. Otherwise, it would be very uncomfortable for us, to go back and forth in such strong sunlight. Therefore, when one practicing the way has a thought, the flock of compassionate birds will come to protect him." In July 1955, the Venerable Monk's thatched hut was burned down, and the outer wall of the connected small kitchen also collapsed. That's an earthen wall, which needs to be held together by two planks first, and then compact the dirt in between. At that time, 4 masters were building the wall. They had just dumped the soil. It was afternoon, and dark clouds were rolling in the western sky, with a strong threat of a rainstorm. The 4 masters were all anxious, because the newly built earthen wall was not yet solid. If it were to be drenched by rain, it would collapse. One of them said, "The Venerable Monk is sitting at the door. Let's go over and ask him to motivate an ocean, not to let the rain pour over here." When the other 3 agreed, he went over to the old monk and bowed to him, saying, "Venerable Monk, please be kind. Our mud wall has just been built. If it rains, it will collapse. We can't let it get wet." The Venerable Monk looked up at the sky, got up and went back to his room without saying a word. After a while, a strong wind blew, and heavy rain followed. The wind and rain were so strong that the rain stopped, when it reached the house to the west of the hut, less than 5 feet away from the earth wall. It rained for more than an hour, and the rain kept pouring down from the roof, but there was not a drop of rain around the thatched hut with dirt walls. After the storm, the 4 of them ran to the Venerable Monk with joy, to pay their respects and thank him for his help. The Venerable Monk did not make a sound or utter a word. The ancient sage said, "A man of high virtue is revered by dragons and tigers, a man of great virtue is admired by ghosts and deities." That is very true. When the Venerable Monk had an idea, even the Dragon King seemed to obey. Wherever he wanted to stop the rain, it would not fall. In the middle of the 5th month of 1957, shortly after the rice seedlings were planted in the rice fields, heavy rains fell in the mountains for several days, causing a flash flood that washed away the bridge nearby. The flood, carrying small stones, mud and sand, overflowed the embankment of the mountain stream, and was about to rush into the rice fields. It was around noon. When Master Hongqing just came out of the small kitchen, he was surprised to find the Venerable Monk alone in the wind and rain, without an umbrella, wearing a patched jacket and arahant straw sandals, strolling slowly eastward along the embankment towards the rice fields. He immediately grabbed an umbrella, opened another one for himself, and ran to the Venerable Monk. Strangely enough, he discovered that, wherever the Venerable Monk walked, the flood waters did not rush into the rice fields, but instead flowed eastward along the mountain, several feet higher than the rice fields and the creek bank. That is, the flood waters did not flow to the lower areas, but instead rushed to the higher areas. In this way, the newly planted rice fields were spared from being submerged by the flood waters and mud. Afterwards, the Venerable Monk walked to the bridge and stood there. Master Hongqing came back and called the Premier Master. After the Premier Master knew about it, he himself walked to the Venerable Monk himself and asked, "Why did you come out alone in such heavy rain?" The Venerable Monk said, "If I don't come out, the 10 acres of rice fields above will be gone. They will be covered by mud and sand from the mountain torrents. How can we harvest the rice then?" At that time, we noticed that the Venerable Monk's jacket wasn't damp with raindrops, only his straw sandals were wet. It was truly a case of where the eminent priest walks, even the water makes way. His demeanor, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, was very dignified, truly embodying the principles of walking like the wind, standing like a pine tree, sitting like a bell, and lying like a bow. When he stood up, he would always have his hands hanging down, his neck resting on his collar, and walk with his back straight. He often told us, "If your body is straight, your shadow will be straight." He was implying that those who diligently cultivate the way, if they have a sincere heart, are destined to succeed. Every word he spoke throughout his life serves as guidance for us, every action he took serves as a model for future generations. Throughout his life, the Venerable Monk built more than 80 small temples, and revived 6 large monasteries. He personally took the tonsure over 1,000 disciples, and has more than 1 million followers both domestically and abroad. Therefore, he is arguably a leading figure in contemporary Chan Buddhism. During the socialist education period in 1958, some ultra-leftist individuals used undesirable monks to slander the Venerable Monk. Because the Venerable Monk was a member of the National Political Conference, they could not label him a reactionary, but could only damage his reputation. So they wrote many big character posters about the Venerable Monk that were not true. The Venerable Monk read it without saying a word, and expressed his gratitude at the meeting. However, the sorrow in his heart was indescribable. After 1958, he told us, "I'm leaving." We asked him sadly, "Why are you leaving now?" He said, "You don't know, there are still 10 years of suffering ahead, it's disastrous." At the time we didn't understand, and what followed was the 10-year catastrophe of the Cultural Revolution. From then on, he frequently fell minor ill, and began to pass on his affairs to his descendants one by one, distributing all his possessions to the public. On the afternoon of September 10, 1959, the Venerable Monk gave his final revelation and will to the public. He said, "My last words are, diligently cultivate precepts, meditation, and wisdom, and extinguish greed, anger and ignorance." After a while, he said again, "We must cultivate a fearless spirit with righteous thoughts and minds, to help others in the world." The Venerable Monk admonished us to uphold the precepts and cultivate ourselves well. At noon on September 12, 1959, the Venerable Monk said to his attendant, "Just now in my dream, I saw a cow trample the stone slabs of the Buddha print bridge to pieces, and I also saw the stream of the Green Creek was interrupted." He then closed his eyes and remained silent. At 12:30, the old monk called the attendants in and told them, "You have served me for many years and have worked hard. I won't go into the past. For the past 10 years, I've endured hardship, living in constant fear and uncertainty, suffering slander and flattery, all of which I willingly bear, solely for the sake of preserving Buddhist temples and upholding the ancestral virtues and pure rules for the monasteries. But how can this be preserved permanently? There is only one word, precept." After the Venerable Monk finished speaking, he clasped his hands together and wished everyone well. With tears in their eyes, the crowd withdrew, and waited beneath the eaves outside. At 1:45 p.m., he passed away peacefully, in his thatched hut on Yunju Mountain, lying in a reclining position on his right side. In a month or so before his passing, many masters saw a large patch of light emerge from the thatched hut, and head towards the main hall. They saw only a bright halo without any image, and the halo gradually disappeared after entering the main hall. More than a month later, the Venerable Monk had arranged everything properly, and wrote a will in his own hand. Then he asked the 2 attendants to leave, and he himself remained in the hut and passed away quietly. The Venerable Monk passed away on September 12. His coffin was sealed on September 19, and he was cremated the following day. It was expected that the crematorium would be open 3 days later, to collect his relics and ashes. Unexpectedly, a fire broke out on the mountain the next day. Nearly 100 people lived on the mountain, and all the monks went to fight the fire, leaving only some old, weak, sick and disabled people in the temple. Some people ran to the outside of the incinerator cave and peered inside. They reached in and grabbed a handful of ashes. When they saw that there were several bright and shiny relics, they immediately made a fuss. After a while, the firefighters returned one after another. Hearing that there were relics in the Venerable Monk's ashes, they rushed over, vying to grab a handful of ashes and then running to a secluded spot in the mountains, because the government's situation at the time did not allow people to say that there were relics. Dozens of people were like this. Some had several relics in a handful of ashes, while others had 1 or 2. They varied in size and color, with the white and crystalline ones being the most common. Therefore, it is impossible to count how many relics were in the Venerable Monk's ashes. His life story is vast and numerous, and it is recorded in his chronology. Those who were older at the time all said that they witnessed it with their own eyes, and heard it with their own ears, and that it was true and without falsehood. Due to my limited knowledge and the short time I had with the Venerable Monk, I can only speak briefly about his life. I hope that all virtuous people will kindly offer their corrections. That's all for today. Thank you everyone.